Difficult side effects. Yo, what's going on? It's someone, and welcome back to today's report. Today's report is coming from AC, off Herowood. When this happened, 2007. The drug used, mirtazapine, at a dose of 30 milligrams. The route administration, orally. Gender, male. Weight, 57 kilograms. For his prior experience, benzos, stimulants, alcohol, and 15 milligrams of mirtazapine. For his set, he was drinking heavy days prior to this, and the setting, at home. Okay, so today, we finally have another report on mirtazapine. We're covering this substance today for a few reasons. The first being that the first report we did on mirtazapine, Psychedelic Delirium by Josh Silver, actually turned out to have caffeine in it. I caught this when we redid it. So here's a report with mirtazapine alone. The second reason we're covering this now is the Discord. If you don't know, we hold voting for the next report sometimes, and mirtazapine got the most votes. So hop in the Discord to catch the next vote. The third reason is that I want to break this substance down a bit, dive into it, and see how it works. This is prescribed as an antidepressant, and many claim that this substance can have psychedelic and delirious qualities. And just looking at its pharmacology, it's very atypical in how it works. We'll break it down more after the report. I'm sure you'll enjoy this, so without further ado, let's dive right into it. A friend of mine has been prescribed mirtazapine, Zispin brand, as an antidepressant on and off over the last 2 years. He was initially prescribed 15 milligram tablets and is now on 30 milligram doses. Mirtazapine has a sedative effect and is normally taken before bedtime. As far as I know, my friend doesn't always take the pills and only really uses them as a sleep aid, as and when he needs them. He therefore doesn't normally mind sharing them with others if we have been out raving, taking stimulants, etc. We were on a holiday recently and he gave me 3 doses, 1 to use that night and another 2 to use later, because he was leaving the next day. I had taken a couple of the 15 milligram tablets a year or 2 ago and found them to be mildly sedating, in a similar way to lower strength benzodiazepines. The 30 milligram doses, however, produce much more pronounced and noticeable side effects. Dose 1. As I closed my eyes to go to sleep that night, I saw a rapid succession of dreamlike images, as though I was starting to dream without really being asleep yet. It took me ages to actually drop off. I had a rather difficult and unhappy dream. When I woke the next day, I was groggy and uncoordinated. I was also shaking. I had been drinking rather excessively in the preceding days, and put this down to the alcohol that I had consumed. I felt very constipated that day as well, although I didn't attribute this to the mirtazapine at that point. Dose 2. I took the second tablet that evening, an hour before going to bed. This time, the pre-dream images were more intense and disturbing. It took me ages to actually get to sleep, because of the images that would suddenly pop into my head. I had another very dark dream in which I became lucid. Lucid dreams are rare for me. I remember trying my hardest to wake up by pinching myself and wringing my hands. When I did wake up, I woke up into another dream. When I woke up for real, I made the decision to end my holiday and go home that day. The mirtazapine hangover seemed to last all day. I felt exhausted, as if I hadn't actually had any proper sleep that night. The constipated feeling continued. Dose 3. Once I arrived home, I decided to go to bed early that night so I could get a proper sleep. I decided not to take the third hit of mirtazapine and try to sleep unaided. This proved to be impossible. This is very hard to explain. I was dreaming vividly, but felt as though I was still awake. It was as though my body wouldn't allow me to reach a deep state of sleep. After 4 hours of this, I gave in and took the mirtazapine. I had to work the next day and felt terrible all day. It truly did feel as if I had been awake for days. I also had a terrible craving for unhealthy foods, which I didn't normally eat. This continued for yet another day, to the point where I almost had a full-blown panic attack at work and had to go home early. It's now 3 days since I took the third tablet, and my mood, appetite, and sleeping pattern are almost back to normal. I wouldn't recommend mirtazapine to be used recreationally or as a sleep aid by people who haven't been prescribed it, especially at higher doses. I certainly wouldn't recommend abusing it for more than 1 day consecutively. I've had benzodiazepine hangovers before, but this was worse. Bear in mind that I was only taking the stated dose, 1 tablet a day at bedtime. Alright, so here we dive into another substance. It's been a while since we did this last time, But let's break down mirtazapine and see why AC experienced some of the things he did. Now when I say this substance is atypical, I really do mean that, as you'll see that it can offer far more than just being an antidepressant. And looking at it pharmacologically, things start to make sense why it acts the way it does. But to start, mirtazapine is a part of the piperazinoazepine class and is a tetracyclic antidepressant. Mirtazapine was first synthesized back in 1989 and wasn't approved for usage until 1994. And this was synthesized based off another tetracyclic antidepressant, one called mianserin, which technically these would be considered analogs of each other. In terms of depression, mirtazapine has shown to be on par in effectiveness compared to other antidepressants. Notably, it tends to start working faster and potentially the side effects may not be as bad. But because of mirtazapine's unique profile and activity, it can be applicable for a lot of other conditions too. This includes things like anxiety, OCD, PTSD, insomnia, allergies, a need for an appetite, and many more. But let's look at how this acts pharmacologically and see how it can help treat these conditions. The bulk of mirtazapine's effects are thought to be brought on through the antagonism or inverse agonism of serotonin, adrenergic, and histamine receptors, much more different than your typical SSRI. It's thought to bind most strongly to histamine, which, if you recognize this, the bulk of deliriants are antihistamines. So any delirium brought on through a high dose is most likely explained through this activity. It also explains why AC experienced such strong drowsiness as well, as this is a side effect of antihistamines, as well as potential dehydration. But it also explains how this can be applicable for so many treated conditions like insomnia, allergies, nausea, and all that. Considering its effect on serotonin receptors, you may think it's weird that mirtazapine is an active antagonist of it, considering that a typical antidepressant, or SSRI, will increase the amount of serotonin you have and increase the activity of many of these receptors. But many who are on such antidepressants may find such activity leading to a bulk of undesirable effects, commonly things like loss of appetite, nausea, insomnia, or sexual dysfunction. So mirtazapine may be a better alternative if these side effects are too much. It can even find itself into an augmentation plan where you take it alongside other substances, like a base SSRI. Typically, you won't be able to mix antidepressants with many substances, especially another antidepressant, due to risk of serotonin syndrome. But mirtazapine won't have a direct impact on serotonin like that, and there's considered to be a low risk of serotonin syndrome. We see it reduces some of the activity of the receptors, and this is why it can pair well with an SSRI. Ideally, taking mirtazapine will help reduce some of those unwanted side effects. But this activity on the serotonin receptors is also partly responsible for aiding in areas like nausea, appetite, and getting sleep, though a good amount of the antidepressant effects may also result from this. This can help improve feelings of anxiety, it can help reduce cravings and overall drug use, it can help reduce withdrawal effects, there may even be a direct impact on happiness. There is evidence showing an increase in dopamine and norepinephrine, though adrenergic receptors mainly contribute to this. Looking at the activity there, things get a bit more complex, and we better see how this is a part-way specific serotonin antidepressant. Specifically, the alpha-2 adrenergic receptors are antagonized the strongest, and these receptors are largely responsible for inhibiting adrenergic, dopaminergic, and serotonergic neurotransmission, all which may play a role in the antidepressive effect. An increase in dopamine is pretty straightforward, it being considered the happy molecule, but an increase in norepinephrine will directly lead to an increase in metabolism and general activity. And this is more of a long-term outlook rather than acute, considering the bulk of mirtazapine's other effects. But the serotonergic neurotransmission is really what interests me. Like I said, it's complex, so I won't go into exactly how, but mirtazapine's adrenergic antagonism will indirectly cause serotonin 5-HT1A agonism. Very, very unique how a good portion of the serotonin system will be antagonized, but only a selective portion gets activity. It is pretty small regardless of the activity, but it is considered enough to where it can improve mood. But I wonder if in high enough doses, that maybe this is responsible for some potential psychedelic activity. 5-HT1A isn't considered the main activation site for psychedelics, but some show that there is significant agonism that takes place there, namely with 5-MeO-DMT and psilocybin. I feel like this wouldn't be responsible for the bulk of hallucinogenic effects, but it very well could contribute to a tripping experience. Now besides that, and histamine of course, I think what may be responsible is the kappa opioid receptor. Yep, mirtazapine has shown to have some activity on it, which, if you don't know, this is the receptor salvia targets, and it's thought that this receptor causes the trip for that. So this too could very well contribute to a trip, if not provide a bulk of it. This could also be a mechanism that may provide pain relief, as it has been reported with mirtazapine. It may even be responsible for the withdrawal and constipation AC noted. But take all the pharmacology I just laid out with a grain of salt, at least concerning this substance recreationally, as most of this data and the readings taken have been from individuals taking medicinal doses over a period of time. With this report though, we got a good look at medicinal doses. Specifically, we got a good look at what it may be like getting on it, at least in the average individual. But there's a few quick facts I want to bring up. We won't be getting into everything about this substance, as there's just so much on it. So if you are taking it and have a question, I do recommend get professional help and do your own research extensively, as there is a lot of varied activity with this substance and it can be applied across so many situations. But I do want to note that the half-life of it is considered to be 20 to 40 hours, which it may even take longer to get back to baseline if you've been taking it habitually. This most likely explains why AC had such a struggle getting back to his normal self, though his previous alcohol use may have also influenced the rough state. In terms of overdose, it's unlikely to cause death or even be very toxic. There have been cases where 30 to 50 times the standard dose was taken and little to no toxicity was reported. That isn't to say it's completely absent or overdose is impossible. On record, there is 12 overdose fatalities. There's research also showing there may be a hepatocellular increase when it comes to tumors, and that includes benign and cancerous. About 10% of patients end up with a liver abnormality. Then there's been research in mice showing that it may not be ideal when it comes to pregnancy. This includes difficulties with fertility, when pregnant, and even after pregnancy, whether it be with the newborn or potentially in the mother's milk. Then there's also been studies showing that it may decrease white blood cell count, and then others indicating it may raise cholesterol. And there's more than what I'm just presenting here, but basically this substance is far from perfect. There's going to be risks associated with taking it, and it may not be right for you. But then again, maybe it is. Like any substance-person relationship, it's about finding what's right for you. But we're going to end it there for today. We went in kind of deep with mirtazapine, but I'm sure there's a lot more we'll be getting into in the future. So if you like this video on mirtazapine, if you want to see more on mirtazapine or any substance at all, let me know in the comments below and we'll do that. If you have your own report you want to see, send it in to NoOneSubmitReport@gmail.com or follow the link below. Make sure to check out the Patreon and the socials. Besides that, if you enjoyed this, you already know, hit the like button and subscribe. It's been someone that's someone, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace out.